Kathy here from Kathys Kutek Creations. Today is week 2. Who's excited like I am? We are going to work on 2 blocks. Now they're going to end up being 8 of them. Hopefully that's not too washed out. And let me show you what one of them looks like. This is the first one. It is adorable. I'm not going to show you the second one. We're going to get started right now. Let's get going.
Ahead and I set up one set of the acorns on this board. Then I set up this one for the next set. This way my colors and everything can stay separated. So we're going to do the first one, which is on page 1 of the directions. The very first thing that it's asking us to do is take our little squares, which are 1.5 by 1.5, and it wants the 2.5 by 8.5 rectangles. And they want us to put these up at the corner. We're going to put them in a corner here and the corner here. It's going to be like this and like this. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it on all 4 corners. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to mark the back of these. So let's take our little friction pen and flip all these over, and then we're going to mark them diagonally. Now this is what I'm going to do with my first half. So I'm just going to take all my brown here, and I'm going to make sure when we sew these, you can either go from the top or the bottom, it makes no difference, but I'm going to put them on my little brown pieces and just pin them once so I can pick them up without them falling off. And I'll get all of these done, and then I'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. So go ahead and pin all yours. These 2 sides, you're going to have it look like that. You're going to cut this edge off and you're going to flip this over, and that's what you're going to have for all of these. And that means we've done half of these, and then we'll come around and do the other side. Cut it off and you've ironed it. It'll look like that. These are snowball corners. I showed you what they look like. Let's go ahead and finish up sewing them. The way that I'm going to cut them all. This has the 1/4 inch on my ruler already. I put it straight diagonal, and then all I do is just cut the corner off. Then I'll turn this one, do the same exact thing. Then when they're all off, I'll iron them all, and I'll have them stacked up over here, and we'll start pinning for the next section. Now the process for this, I have these 3 here, is we're going to take our little square just like before, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put on this corner. The only difference is instead of sewing from here, I'm going to start down here at the corner. So how I'm going to do it is I'm going to do it like this. And you can see there's going to be quite a good 1/4 inch. And we're going to be watching when we get ready to connect this if it has to match up. And I'm just going to pin every one like that, because that's how I'm sewing. Just take your time. And then when I'm done, we'll come back and we'll get ready to sew them. And then we're going to flip them over, and we're going to do this side, because both sides need to be done. There's one. Here's the other one. Flip it over like that. Remember now, we don't want this line going up in our corner over there. We want it coming down from the corner. I never feel like this corner stays down when you do this. This corner right here. There we go. And now we'll just sew all of these. Just take your time. Now I'll leave my pen in here until I've sewn a little bit. Then I'll remove my pen. I just want to make sure that I get over the bump of that other fabric before I release this pen. You guys go ahead and finish yours up. And then we'll meet back here when you're done, and we'll have all of these to open. When I cut these, I do not stack them because I want to make sure that I get them all individually cut correctly, and I would not want a mistake. When we're done, we're going to take it to the ironing board. We're going to iron it like that. I do not know if we're going to be marking our little tips or not to avoid losing them. If we do, then I will show you how I do that. So just go ahead and do all of yours. If you're into saving all these little teeny weeny scraps because you want to put them in a pillow or something, then you've got some to add to your stash. I don't usually do pillows because I don't want my dogs getting them on them or the cats getting on them. I've made one pillow that I use for my back on the couch, and then I put it up when I'm done and I leave the room. Dewey likes to jump on the furniture when I'm not around, and I don't permit him on the furniture. That's it. Let's go iron it open. With this part, we have 4. We're going to set them aside, and we're going to start with the next square. Take our 2-inch squares, and we're going to mark these just like we did those 1.5 by 1.5s, because we're going to make the bottom half, I believe, of our nut. So let's just mark these just like we did before. So go ahead and mark yours. Then we're going to take the bottom. This is our 6.5 by 5.5. And we're going to put 1 on each corner, and we're going to sew that. Now remember, the line does not go in the corner here. It goes on the sides. Let's go ahead and get all those ready. This is the way they look when you've got them all pinned up and ready to go. I'm going to bring them right here, and we're going to sew them. Now these are upside down, by the way, just so that you know. And I like to sew from the inside to the outside. Go ahead and we're going to turn these around, and I'm going to clip them first, and then we're going to do the other side. Now you're going to iron these, and don't forget you're relaxing your seams first, and then we'll cut them, and then we'll re-iron them to open them up. And you're going to cut these the exact same way that we did before, still doing with the 1/4 inch, and all I do is put my ruler right on top of the seam and do every one like this, and then we'll open these up. That'll look just like that, and that'll be the bottom of it, I do believe, because it goes like this. Next step is to take our cream 5.5 by 1.5, and we're going to put them on each side, so it's going to look like this when we're done. That's the figure 3. Then it wants us to take the brown, which we finished already, this strip here, and it wants us to take it across the top. And that's what we're going to do next. So we're going to sew all of the cream to each side of the, I'm going to call this the body of the nut, and then the top part. Now if you need to pin this, by all means pin it. You might want to pin it down here where this is folded over, so that it doesn't come up on you. Otherwise, just you can use your clips or whatever you want to use. I'm not going to pin it this time around. I'm just going to take my time and start at the top and work my way down. Go ahead and cut it, and let's flip them and sew the other creams on it. This time around I flipped them, so I'm sewing from the bottom up, which it shouldn't be a problem. Now I'll iron these open before I add the tops. Alrighty, so I'm going to move that out of the way here. So this is what we're going to do now. So you're going to take the top of the nut and the brown piece, and you're going to put them together. Now keep in mind that this end here does not match up with that end. Put it up there and you can see it doesn't match up. It's not supposed to match up. Alrighty, so don't panic if yours doesn't. and then don't by accident put it down there at the bottom. So think of the fact that the largest portion of the orange needs to be at the top, the smaller part needs to be at the bottom. Let's go ahead and pin all these. Now that we have these all pinned, let's go ahead and sew them, and we'll chain stitch them. The advantage of chain stitching is that when you're finished, then you'll have all of them made. Instead of one, you'll have all four. I'm going to take a look at these before I go any further. I have a feeling. Let's see if my feeling's right. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so you might not have had to put them, but they are coming out. Even though we didn't have to match them up. Oh, they're turning out okay though. Alright. I was hoping to be a little bit more different than that. They're almost matching up perfectly. Let's go ahead and finish this last one. Now let's iron them all open. We'll go ahead and we'll pin one side just like we did before. And then we'll go ahead and we'll put all these sides on. We're going to mark our fabric down here. As you can see, I've got a little black mark and I have 2 lines. We want to make sure that when we sew this, we stay on this line and we don't go below the line, or we'll take our tip off right here. So I've made sure that my right sides are together. I pinned it top to bottom, and then I went ahead and I marked it. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew it. Now, if you're just now tuning in and you're new, then, and you have never done this before and you're kind of leery about it, you can actually take your needle and start right here and go over this and come off. Take out this pin and this pin, flip it over, make sure you have not taken your tip away. And by tip away, I mean you don't want to cut this off. What you're wanting to do is sew it right along here so that stays there and you don't lose it. You don't come down in here. And then if it worked for you, go ahead and start up at the other end, up here, and come on all the way down and just sew over what you've sewn. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pin all of these before I start so that I can go ahead and chain stitch them. And just take your time, and then when you come up to the pins, you can take them out. Oops. And you're going to slowly come up to the line, just like that. And then I'm going to take my pin out, and if your fabric is too thick, you're going to grab it and pull on it a little bit to help it along. If you need to do that. You don't worry about it. I have this pinned here so that that piece does not flip up on me. Now flip it over and do the other side. Now this time I'm coming up from the bottom. Open and take a look at it. And there is that finished. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take these 2 strips, which are 5 inches each, and the one in the middle here, which is, I've already forgotten, 1.5 by 1.5, and we're going to make strips, and we're going to do 4 of them to put at the top up here. So let's do that next. So these little bitty squares don't need to be pinned if you don't want to. If you feel like you have to, that's fine, but this would be a good time to practice not pinning. Just put it in the corner there, and we'll do our 1/4 inch. Won't seem like much when we get finished, but that's fine. Do one, line them up the best you can. Put the other cream color on it as soon as we get done with all these. And I'll go ahead and iron them open before I even put the other cream end on. I just find it easier. But first I'm going to look to see if there is an actual direction. Let me find out. I just ironed them all to the brown because I thought it'd be easier. And now I'm going to go ahead and attach the cream. I'll go ahead and iron these open before we put it to the other strip. We're going to take the strips that we made and we're going to attach them to the M, and then we're going to attach them to the top of the block. So let's do that first. Let's go ahead and chain stitch these. And I went ahead and I made it so that the part that's got ironed together is on the back side.
I don't think it really made a difference. I mean, they do match up. Okay, so that's what you have. These two strips sewn together. They want to put them to the top of the nut. Then they want you to take this strip here and put it at the bottom of the nut. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the top and then the bottom. Right, let's get this nut done. So I'm starting at the bottom one first, because I pinned both the top and the bottom. And let's iron it open. Alright, there is the first block with the nut. And now let's go on to the second block. Now on this second block, we're going to repeat making, just like the first one, these strips. You're going to mark all your little bitty squares. This is what you have left over, diagonally, and we're going to lay them down. Remember, we're going to have them like this, so that your mark goes on each side of the brown fabric, not down the middle here, not from corner to corner. And we're going to do all the corners. So just repeat what we just did and we'll come back. Alrighty, so when you've got all these done, this is exactly what they looked like before. Now remember, the last time around we put a little white strip on the side here, on both sides, right and left. So we're going to do that with our little 2.5. I believe this is the one, if I'm not mistaken. Let's make sure. This is what you'll have here, your little 2.5 by 1.5, 8 of them. And then we're going to put one on each side, just like we did before. This is nothing but a carbon copy of what we did. So let's go ahead and get those. And then when we're done, we're going to set all of these aside and we're going to work on our half square triangles. Now, before we put our little piece on here, because I don't want you to do it this way. Don't put it like that and then start sewing, okay? What I want you to do first is flip this over. Where we're going to mark a spot above where these two. Then we're going to take it, we're going to put our ruler down, and then I'm going to put my pin right on the spot, and then I can actually see where the two cross here, and then I'm going to draw a little line both directions, like that, as you can see, and we're going to sew so that we don't go past on this side of that line. You can stay right on that line and you will not take your tip off, and that's what we're going to do to each corner of these. Now you're going to have these 4 done like this. We're going to set them aside temporarily. You're going to take your 2, and you have 2 5-inch squares. You should have a cream color and a brown, or whatever color that you're using in your project, and we're going to put the right sides together so that we can go ahead and make our half square triangles. Now we're going to do the same thing we did before, where we're going to draw our 2 lines here and our 2 lines here. And you know what, if I can get it on my brown side, that's what I'm going to do, is put it on this brown side. Let's go with this blue. There we go. And this is my cutting line, and then I'm going to put my 1/4 inch. Now on this ruler, I'm a 1/4 inch from the little dots here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the sewing line just like that. I'm going to turn it around, do the same thing again, and you can just put your ruler straight from end to end if you want, and then just draw your line and forget about that dashed line. It's whatever you want to do. And do the same thing here. Now with this friction pin, if you make a mistake, you know, you can just iron over the top of it and it's gone. So no biggie. So finish that up for me. Get it all marked up. I pinned it in one spot, and then we're going to sew it. And we're going to sew it right down these lines. So we'll have it sewn 4 places, and then we're going to cut it apart just like before. So go ahead and sew it just like the last time, and we're going to come back, and then I'm going to show you how to cut them down and how to cut it apart. Alright, so I went ahead and I got my rotating mat out here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at these lines and this X right here,
and I'm going to cut it. And if you need to measure from the left to this, you're looking at 2.5. Remember, this is a 5-inch square, so 2.5 over, and then you'll have 2.5 on this side. We'll move the mat like this, and we'll come over 2.5, do the same thing. So all we're doing, this part, is cutting it into 4s. Let me make sure I'm in the picture here. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut between our lines. The little edge to edge. And you've got to take them apart to cut them, that's fine. And there we go. And now we have them all done, just like that. Now we're going to open them up, so let's iron them all. We're going for a 2-inch size. Now remember, the most important thing is that we're going to be looking at this right here down the middle, and all we're doing when we square up is we're actually trying to even out and make sure that the right and the left side of this fabric are the same size. You don't want your block to end up so that you got less brown than you have white or cream, or vice versa. So I take off the least amount that I can just to trim it up before I make it my 2-inch square. So, and remember, if you don't have a mat like this, remember the last time I used this little blue one here? Let me get it here for you. I used this one here. Flip it over to the other side, because this will turn and rotate, so you don't need the revolving mat for a little bitty project like this. And then I'm just going to flip it over now that I've moved it. Let's see here. I need to go this direction with it. And then I just go to the, I guess I'll get my ruler right, 2-inch. And this is 2 inches. And you're going to put it down the diagonal. There's my 2-inch there, my 2-inch here. And then you're going to trim the one side, and you're going to rotate it, and you're going to trim the other side. And there you go, 2 inches. Isn't that a cute, teeny weeny little thing? All right, let's do the next one. Got a bad habit of getting out of the camera here. Let's go a little closer. Alrighty, there we go. So we start out just like this. And like I said, take the least amount off first. Then you don't accidentally chop your little square too small. Alright, and then we're going to take it, and we're going to turn it this way. We're going to pick up our ruler, place it back down, and I got 2 inches here, and 2 inches here, and then we just make sure it is right up this seam. We'll cut it, turn it, and cut it again, and there you go. Now you go and do all of your squares just like that until you've got them all done, and then we'll come back, start the next thing. Okay, now we're going to take our pieces here and we're going to start building our block. So we want our H squares, which are going to be brown or whatever color that you have. These are 2 by 2. Let's lay it out. Alrighty, this is what it looks like when it's laid out, and then we're going to add these on the side. I know they don't look like they're going to fit, but they will fit. They are 2.5 by 5.5. So let's go ahead and first we're going to make this square before we start putting everything together. I'm not going to pin it, but what I am doing is I'm going to do row by row. So the first thing I did was took my middle piece and my left piece, and I'm going to sew that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain stitch them. So then I'm taking the second row, and you can sew it on either side. It doesn't make any difference, right or left. I'm putting the bigger ones on top. We're going to make this one square first. And I've got the end down here. And I'm going to put the small one on here because I want to make sure that my half square triangle, that this fabric right here stays facing down, because I don't want it jumping up and ruining it. There we go. Now I'm going to cut it apart. Going to go ahead and iron it. Going to iron them all open before I sew the next one on. Now when I iron these, remember you want one row going one direction and one row going the other direction. So I just went right, left, right. This way they'll lay pretty good. Let's get the next one going here. This is the last block on each row before I sew the rows together. And you want to, there we go. I'm going to iron these open before we put the rows together. Okay, so when they're all done, you'll have these 3 rows right here. So if you iron them correctly, you just need to match them up. Make sure they're going the right direction. So it'll be seam to seam. Just like that. I'll go ahead and I'll pin these. And then we're going to sew each row. Now make sure you keep your rows straight. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the last one here. And make sure your half square triangles goes in the right direction before you pin it. At the beginning, I don't necessarily need a pin because I held that down before I put my needle on there. But when it came to the end down here, then I do, because it's going to flip over on me if I don't. Let's see, right here on this end, I want that to be flipping up. There we go, and off. Now iron this open before we put the sides on. And our sides on before we do our top and our bottom. You're going to mark, this is where you're marking where this little half square triangle is, because we don't want to go below the line there. Same with this side over here. Flip it around, go ahead and mark it. This is where we're putting our white fabric on. We want to make sure we don't take our little tips off. And I pinned both ends. Just go ahead and sew it. And be mindful of your line when you get. And at any time while you're sewing, if your sewing machine doesn't want to go through it, go ahead and grab your fabric back here on the back side and just pull it a little bit. Just a little bit of a gentle tug to get it to go over your bumps. That's what it takes. Some of the machines don't like all this thick fabric. And go to the other side, do the same thing. And if you feel like you got to do a lot of pinning, do a lot of pinning. You want to go ahead and check your points. Make sure you didn't lose them. There's my first point. There's my second point. Just check yours. Now I'm going to go over here and iron it to resemble more of a nut. We're going to go ahead and we're going to work from the bottom and belong to the top. So we need a cream color and the, call it the oatmeal, the M, and we're going to put those 2 pieces together, which are the bottom. Let's do that first. Okay, so before we put these together, we have to build this one first. And so instead of it being out of cream on each side, it's the oatmeal. So we're going to put this together just like we did the last one, and then we're going to attach to that, and we're going to attach these 2 to them, and then this will be the bottom and this will be the top. So go ahead and sew those up so we've got these already made, and then I'll come back. So now that you've got the body built, the top built, the bottom built, put it all together, and then we're going to be done with the block. And I only did this one block at a time. So pin it first, and then I'll be back. Here's what you should have when you're totally finished. It is really nice looking. I'm going to put it up against this other one so you can take a look at it on the design wall. Okie dokie, there you go. These are the 2 blocks for week 2. Okay, there they both are together. I hope you guys liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and like, subscribe, and I'll see you for week 3 next week. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye. Here are all the blocks for week 1 and 2 on the design board, and the board is at an angle, so it looks like they got smaller, but they didn't. They are all 10.5 inches. I will see you next week for week 3. Bye-bye.